Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. So in my last video I made these bench dogs and I showed you how to make them, and I mentioned in the next video, which is today, I was going to show you a whole bunch of other ways to use these and a lot of other jigs and fixtures I have to go on top of a bench top to hold your work. So this is going to be a big work holding video here. We'll get back to these in a minute, but I want to start with probably the best, easiest thing to put on a bench to hold your work, and that's right here. This is my Doyle vise. I did a separate video on this vise. I'll put it up here. I really like this vise. This is a Harbor Freight vise, and I got this for 70 bucks. So that's a very good deal. I believe that's still the going price, and you know, for 70 bucks, this is a very good vise. Now, many people with a face vise, they might have dog holes going out here like that. And I might put some in here later, but right now I don't have any. I use the vise strictly to put material in, hold it. And this is a very sturdy vise, as you can see. When I want to plane things, I'll sometimes do it in the vise, and sometimes I'll use these dog holes, which I'll explain in a minute. Now, this is what they call a standard woodworking vise. In this position, which is the left side of the vise on the face, you could put something like this and it'd be called a face vise. You could put a leg vise here. You could put a shoulder vise here. Shoulder vise is something like what Rob Cosman uses a shoulder vise. It's the one that goes past like this around, and then it has a screws that goes through. All of those can go here fine. In the middle of the bench, you could put a twin screw or a Moxon vise, and you could put it up on top and bolt it down. I have the equipment to make one of those. We'll be doing that shortly, but I don't have it put together yet. And then on the end of the vise, you could have a tail vise. And there are several types of tail vises. You could have a wagon vise back here. You could put a twin screw there. You could put a regular woodworking vise here. And those vices would use this row of dog holes to clamp your workspace in. Now, I don't have a tail vise on this bench because this room is so small, I don't have room. If I put a tail vise on there, I wouldn't be able to walk around it. You know, it would be sticking out too far. But I do have a solution for you. Veritas, you're going to hear the word Veritas a lot. They make a lot of these jigs. Veritas makes this thing here. And I'll put a link to it down below because I can't remember the name of it, but I'm sure it's something tail vise. This has two, as we can see, little bench dogs in here. One of them goes here at the end, and the other one, you know, these move, so you can put it wherever your bench hole is. And then you just have a makeshift tail vise. It sits right down there. This has an Allen key in it. You can tighten this down and attach it to the bench. This particular dog here has a cam action to it, so it would tighten down, and you can keep it on your bench if you want. And to be honest with you, it really needs to be tightened down to work well, because if it's not tightened down, it'll try to ride up out. But what you have here is a typical tail vise, and what you can do, put your work surface in here, get yourself one of your bench dogs, and you just gotta bring it up. And the way this works, this mechanism here, if you turn it to the left, you can move it freely. If you turn it to the right, the threads engage, and as you can see, it's rising up out here. So this really does want to be fixed in. So let's just pretend that's fixed in. And we're attached. If I wanted to plane on this, I can. Now, one thing you gotta watch out for with this, and I came close here, I almost hit the blade. This attachment here is a 1/2 inch wide, and this board is getting pretty close to a 1/2 inch. So there are two screw holes on this, and this is attached magnetically. You can take this off. there are 2 screw holes in here, and you can take and make yourself little attachments. You see I have the holes here. This can be attached on here, and I drop it down to about, well, a little less than 3/8 of an inch. So what that would do is let me continue to plane thinner material. So is it as good as having a full-time tail vise? No, I don't think it is. Veritas also makes something called an inset vise. And every time I go to order it, it's out of stock. It is amazing. It must be a good seller. What it does is it's about this size, and it just sits right here, and it actually gets mortised into the top of your bench. And then it has the same threaded thing here, and the dogs just move inside of it, and it's like a little wagon vise. I'm going to get one because I think it's much better than that, and I just can't put a tail vise on this end. So that's vices. If I had my druthers, I would have a longer bench, I would have a twin screw on this end, and I would have a leg vise here, one of the bench crafted leg vices. And this face vise I would probably put on the other side because I work from both sides of my bench. Alright guys, that is vices. Vices are probably the #1 way to connect your equipment to your bench, or your project to your bench, and work on it. Now, let's say you have a bench, and for a minute these dog holes aren't here, and this vise isn't here. You're just getting started building your bench, and you just have a flat top work surface. What do? Well, my bench is configured where I can put clamps around it all 4 sides. I can go all the way around it and connect clamps. Not all benches are like that. You remember the Nicholson bench has a big flat spot to it, so it's very difficult to clamp to. But this is a bench that's very clampable. So if you have the ability to clamp, you can get yourself a little piece of, 1/4 inch, 3/8 plywood, it doesn't matter. Put it down on the end of your bench. And just clamp it there. Then, take a piece of wood, any piece of wood. Usually this is smaller pieces. And you would just put it there, and you can plane away. As you can see, this works fairly well with a nice sharp plane, which this is. Doesn't require any holding equipment other than a couple of clamps, which, well, I'm going to assume you have a couple of clamps, and if you don't, you're going to be getting some soon, and any kind of scrap piece of plywood would work. If you're a little more intuitive to this, you'll recognize that this looks very much like a bench hook. And a bench hook is a tool that you should have 1 or 2 of. This one I use for sawing. And when I want to saw a board, I basically put it here. I'm using, there's a cleat on the bottom, and I'm using my hand to hold it against this fence. And I have options here. I can use one of these holes, or these slots. Doesn't work well with this shark saw because the shark saw's handle comes down like this, and if I use this, I'll be banging my knuckles here. So bad idea for the shark saw. But I can put the board on the end and go ahead and make a cut. And these shark saws are difficult to use with a bench hook because the handle comes down, so you're holding it below the blade like this, and you can hit your knuckles. So a Japanese saw or a proper Western saw with your hand up like this is a much better idea for this. I should have reached over there instead of up here, but it worked. So the bench hook is an excellent tool for sawing. Now what if you wanted to plane? Well, what I would do is make a longer one and have this fence, instead of being 1 inch high, be 3/8 or 1/4 of an inch high. And then it would be out here, and you could put your board up to it like that. I'll do it on this short one just because I can. And same thing. Plane away. Works like a champ. Now obviously you could do larger lumber if you put the fence way out here and made a larger one. Bench hooks are very good for this. Alright guys, next I want to talk about planing stops, and I actually made one last week. It's this big long bench dog looking thing. Here's the small ones. Remember I made this long one last week too. And it goes just like that into the holes. Now in the video last week I said I was going to put some holes out here. I decided against that. I'm going to be honest with you, when I'm not filming YouTube videos, I actually work a lot from that side of the bench. I'm constrained to this wall back here. I'm bumping into things a lot when I'm working, so I have more room over there. So a lot of times I just work on that side. So I'm going to leave this here, and I'll show you again how I use this. Again, I'm going to try to do this without you seeing nothing but my back, but it's probably going to be my back. It's hard to plane like this, but I'm going to put the plane out here. Horrible, horrible, way to do this, but as you can see, you can plane very easily to a planing stop like this. Now, is this the only type of planing stop? The good thing, the best thing about this is it's free. I mean, this is a small piece of scrap oak and a little bit of oak doweling, and it's done. The people at Veritas, they got you covered though if you need something a little bit nicer. This is obviously sliding dogs. They make these in different sizes. I don't know why, but mine's a little gummed up here. But if I wanted to put it here just like that one, I just slide the dogs until they fit. And put it in. Again, same thing. I can put the lumber down, plane right up against it. Let's see if I can pull this off. Absolutely. I wouldn't normally work like that, but as you can see, this works just as well. Okay guys, when talking planing stops, there's a few other things we can talk about. There's this thing here. I think you've seen these before. These actually get mortised into the top of your bench. I've got a start of one here. I'm going to mortise this one in. And what it does is it sits flush with your bench like that. And then there's a little thumb screw in here where you can turn it. And it just brings up this toothed plane stop. So you can basically just take your piece of timber and plane into it. And when you're not using it, you just turn it back down. I'm going to do a separate video on installing this. So you'll see that coming up in the next month or so. One more thing to note here, and I've got this set up. This is if you want to plane on the edge of the board. You can put this in the vise if you want. Sometimes when they get higher, it's hard to plane against just a regular plane stop, so I made this little V groove here. And now I can, of course, just very easily plane the edge of the board. And all this is if we take this apart, you can see I've just taken a piece of scrap and cut a V in it. And then you just put that down, put your board into the V, and take a Wonder Dog or this Craig thing, and tighten it up, and away you go. It holds it higher in the air. So that's a few more options for planing stops. Now, don't forget that your bench dog itself can be a planing stop. The one I made works very well as a planing stop. These blue Craig ones work very well as a planing stop, and probably even a little bit better is this brass one, because the brass one is multi-adjustable. You just put it in and you set it to whatever height you want. So if I want to plane this very thin little board here, I can do it. I can set that to where it's well below the board and go to town. And we got some nice cherry shavings. Alright guys, one more planing stop option I forgot about, and it's the easiest one. If you have no dog holes, no vise, just a flat top. If you have a piece of hardwood or a piece of plywood, the thickness is going to vary by the width of lumber you're going to do. This 3/4 inch piece works fine for this 1.5 inch square piece of walnut. But if you need to do something this thin, obviously you're going to want to use a 1/4 inch sheet of plywood probably. All you do is set it up on your bench. And it's just this easy. You clamp it down. And then you just take your lumber, put it to the plane, put it to the stop, and make some shavings. And walnut is wonderful when you shave it like this. It's actually fun, and that is a nice burnished piece of walnut now. So that's planing stops, guys. An absolute plethora of things you can do to plane on top of your bench. So let me get set up for a few more options for you. Alright, I just drilled one dog hole here, and that one very nicely works with this plane stop right here. So we can plane this way. Now I want to add a few more. I decided I'm going to put 2 up there for planing this way, and I'm going to put 2 here for support when I'm planing. I'll explain that after we drill them. Well, let's drill them really quick. I did a video on this Milescraft drill holder here, and this thing's really good. So let me show you how it drills a hole. Okay, everybody, so there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new dog holes in this bench. How am I going to use them? Well, let me show you. Okay, so these last two I did here allows me to put this there. And what that does is allow me to go this way. I know early in the video I said I wasn't going to do it. I changed my mind again and I put the 2 holes there. And now, when at the bench, standing on this side, I can just move right along doing this. The rest of them are for the same thing. Here I have these 2. And I can put the stop there, and of course that allows me to plane in this direction if I choose to go this way. Obviously this would be with a longer board. Okay guys, now these last 2 holes I put here kind of in the middle, they're going to be for a few things. When I use a planing stop, they're going to go in there like that, and I'm going to put a regular dog here. And what this does is it gives me 2 points of contact. So I can take a board and I can put it up here and over here. Now when I'm planing, and if this could be longer, I could go all the way to the end of this bench, and as I'm planing, I can be pushing, and the force kind of going a little bit this way keeps the board from rotating at all. This is, when you got 2 contact points, it's really tight. And you can just take your plane and make a ton of cherry shavings. Okay, something else I haven't talked about yet, which is a very, very common piece of equipment for a bench top, is what we call the the hold fast. And I'm going to tell you, the hold fasts have a couple of requirements to use them. And my bench doesn't meet them all, which is why I'm moving things here, because the only dog hole I have in this bench that actually goes through the whole bench to the bottom is this row right here. And obviously this has to go through that far. I have storage. I have a cabinet under my bench. So if you have a cabinet under your bench, you can't put holes here. Like this hole here, I didn't make it go all the way through because it would just hit the cabinet. So I just made it for the depth of a dog hole. Now, how does this work? Now, if I have a hole that does go all the way through, let's say I just want this board to be secure right here, I can just drop that down. These are called hold fasts, and the reason is they're fast. If I had this hammer out, I could do this quick. I could just take this, go like this, take the hammer, metal, and it's there. It ain't going anywhere. If I was carving here on this or whatever I was doing to this piece of lumber, it's not going anywhere. You want to release it, a couple whacks on the back, and it's released, good as new. These, you'll see hand tool woodworkers have these holes all over their bench so that they can move around, you know, putting them in places and have the radius of the hold fast anywhere they want where they can hold things down. Like I said, not something I can do because of the limitation of having the cabinet underneath. You also need a thick bench top. You can't do these with a 1/4 inch bench top. You need about 2 inches. These work. When you hit them, they kind of flex and provide friction in the hole. And if it's just 3/4 inch piece of plywood, it won't have enough room for that friction. So they kind of have to have a thicker top. Couple of things to think about, but if you do have the ability to put holes in your bench top and you have a thick top, these things are great. Now if you don't, you're not dead in the water. You now can get these things. I got mine at Taylor Toolworks, and what they are is they look like a bench dog on the bottom, but the other half looks like an F-clamp. And you can just put it down there. You can just put it down there, and it works just like an F-clamp. And again, we're tight to the bench. You got the same thing. I could carve here. I could do whatever I want to this piece of lumber. It's well attached to the bench. These things are great, and they work anywhere on the bench that you put a hole. And the beauty of it is they only need about 1.5 inches of depth to work. So I could put it here. I can put it here. I can put it over here. I can put it anywhere on my bench. Awesome idea. Okay, one more thing I didn't talk about is the bench cookies. I have a love-hate relationship with the bench cookies. These have rubber on both sides, and they also have attachments that go with them. But they're little rubber hockey pucks. They have neoprene on both sides, so you can put a board on these things. And again, they hold. What I use these for the most is this project right here. I'll show you exactly what I do with it. Take my random orbit sander. And I sand boards. I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you just sand flat on your bench top, you're cleaning this side up and you're screwing this side up. Putting your boards on these bench cookies gets you elevated, keeps the bottom protected. I think the sanding is the best use case for them. You could do some carving on here like you do with the hold fast, but I'd rather use the hold fast. Alright guys, wedges. You take and you put your board on your bench in between a pair of bench dogs, but it doesn't quite fit. Oh no, what do? I don't have a Wonder Pup, I don't have a hold fast, I don't have the Craig plastic things. All I have is some scrap wood. So I make a couple of wedges. And I take those wedges and I put them in between the board. And then I take a little hammer and I wedge them together. And as you can see, we're now tight to the bench. And I'm right back plan. Okay, so I get it. If you don't like these, if you don't want to make a bunch of little wedges and have to keep them around somewhere, our friends at Veritas, they have something for everything. This is called the bench blade. And what it is another little cam action clamp. And you just put it in a dog hole. And what you got to do is find the right spacing, which is difficult. This is a cam action levering thing that moves about 1/4 of an inch. So you put a dog down, you put your piece of, and yes, off camera I did find the right piece of wood that fit between these. If you didn't have the right piece, you'd use shim like this to put it in between to get it to be tight. What this does is when you get it tight, you move this cam lever and it just tightens it up to the bench. And then you grab your hand plane, which I put mine away, so I'll just grab this one. And you go to town. And it's much better when you put the wood in with the right grain direction. Just clamp it back on. As you can see, I was having some trouble. It was stuttering. My blade in this plane's not very sharp, so I had some issues. But it held tight. The board didn't come loose. So I like the wedges, but I also like this thing. The thing with this is you really got to work to find a set of dog holes that the piece of timber fits in between. But hey, it's a great little thing and it works well. Okay, that is all of the methods I have to hold wood, lumber, projects, anything you want to your bench top. There are a couple of other things I don't have that I want to mention. The Festool company has the MFT tables, and those tables are very expensive, but you can also now build your own tables by just putting a bunch of spaced holes in the top. They make quite a few very effective wood and project holding tools for the top of that bench. Some of them are very interesting. They have some ratchet clamps that have pistons that just push out and hold things kind of like this is doing here, but instead of using these wedges, it's cam action clamps. T-track is another one. I have T-track down in my basement on my drill press, and I'm going to take a little photo of it now and put it right here. Alright guys, T-track. This is T-track. This is on my drill press table. These blue strips that you see here, that this cam action thing can move up and down, this is the T-track. Both of these are in T-track, and these little clamps are toggle cam action clamps that literally slide anywhere in the T-track and will hold your piece down. So you just put it over the piece and then turn the star knob. And the piece is solid. You could put T-track anywhere, guys. It could go on these on a workbench. It could go on my big assembly table that I have over there. And spoiler alert, that cardboard box right there has about 16 feet of T-track in it that I am going to put on that assembly bench. And it will look just like this. And I will have some of those cam action clamps on that assembly bench as well. I like T-tracks and I can't wait to get that loaded. So as you can see, the cam action on the T-track works really nicely. There are people that have T-track all over their bench, and that's a good holding method. I kind of like it. The Micro Jig company is also now making a dovetail based clamping system. It looks very interesting, but I don't own it yet. I'm sure there's tons of other stuff out there. Like I said, a lot of my stuff came from Veritas. I trust Veritas. I like their equipment. Many other companies make this kind of stuff. It's the sky's the limit. I mean, this is 2 handmade bench dogs and a couple of pieces of, cheap pine that I made a wedge out of. And this board was held very tight to the table. So that's the video. I hope you liked it. I'm sorry I did that. I hope you liked it. I hope that didn't hurt your ears. And if you did, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And as always, have a great day. We'll see you in the next one.